most of you have got quite a few years of serious education behind you. You're a privileged bunch of people. Who laughed? Come on, I mean, yeah. But you are. There are privileges involved with the education that you're receiving. I've just heard, is it King of Kings Manchester, was it? Yes. You might understand my accent. There's a blessing indeed, you know, they come from Manchester. There's a lot of people out in the world who don't know any more than they are being told. They say 90% of education for children, don't ask me who they is, I've never found out, but 90% of the education that children receive comes through a square box in the corner of a room, because people who watch TV and believe it. I was blessed we didn't have one. But people see what comes over the tube and they believe what is said, and most of it isn't a fact. But most people actually believe it. It says on the list here, oh no, I left it over there. It said Douglas Bell, builder, pastor. Pastor's right. I have done some building. I built our building, the one the church has. I also built a swimming pool complex and a couple of houses, but that was it, really. I'm an engineer. I was trained as an engineer. But when I was very young, I knew God. My parents didn't. My parents both actually came to know God just before they went to meet him face to face. But as a little child, I was farmed out to Sunday school on Sunday to keep me out of the way, I think, along with my brother and my sister. And I believed what those people told me because they were believable people. And I did crazy things, like I said to God, you know, my father was telling me off one day that because I was thick, you know, I was, educationally subnormal. He was telling me I would never amount to anything, how, you know, and what do you want to do? I mean, bear in mind, I was 8 years old. But what do you want to do when you leave school? I'm 8 years old. I hadn't thought of leaving school. I hadn't thought of anything beyond breakfast, to be quite honest. But he said, what do you want to do? And like that, I said, I want to write music. And then he told me how I would never do it because I was educational subnormal. I've got songs on YouTube. Yeah, I write music. That's God. I've had no formal training in music, but my songs are taken all over the place. But that's God. The other thing I said is I want to build racing cars. I didn't really want to. Most kids want to drive them, don't they? I wanted to build them. Yeah. So I left school with qualifications that I had one pass mark, I will tell you. It was just about there where they kicked me out, you know. They couldn't wait to get rid of me. I left school with no educational qualifications at all. I could read because the last form teacher that I had actually made me read. He forced the whole class to read with this piece of science called total boredom. He sat us down. Honestly, this guy was brilliant. He really was really clever. But he sat the whole class down, the educationally subnormal group. He sat us down in a classroom, and we were there for 2 days, just sitting. He was also quite ferocious, and in those days, they would beat you if you did anything wrong. So we just sat there for 2 days. At the end of 2 days of sitting, looking at the room, you were totally beyond and out of your skull. And then he made those magic remark. He said, that table of boys over there, go and get books from over there. And it was like, what have they done? But they went and got books, and they started devouring books. Most of them were having trouble reading. I was one of the bright ones in the class, the educationally subnormal class. But I learnt to enjoy reading. I hope you guys enjoy reading, because that is the one thing that will take you through life. I brought my Bible up here. This is well away from where my notes were, but I'm just, yeah. This book, yeah, the different versions of it, the different varieties of translation, is the most fantastic thing I've ever come across in my life. I knew God when I was that big. I left school, I went into engineering, I got an apprenticeship against all the odds. I went to college, I wanted to learn, I wanted to know about it, but it was too late to get the qualifications needed to get an apprenticeship. But I still got one. I still don't know how. Maybe it was God. I was working in a heavy engineering company making mining equipment, and the company was bought out by a big conglomerate. But before they would buy the company out, they told him he had to sack all the apprentices. So there were 20 of us out on the street, no jobs. Because this company didn't believe in apprenticeships. Yeah, they've since gone to the wall. They don't exist anymore, because I believe in feeding young people with enthusiasm for what it is they want to do. And they didn't. But it was a big, big company, and it's gone. So at the age of, I was probably late 19, maybe 20-ish, when I finished up being kicked out. And I got a job welding, repairing a car that had been produced, sent out on the road where they found somebody had forgotten to weld a piece. And this company employed me to weld these bits on these cars that came in, so the front wheels wouldn't fall off. Just a little thing, you know. And I got a job working with cars, which was really strange. 2 years later, I was building racing cars for a living. I really, honestly, truly was building racing cars for a living. I couldn't believe it. I just could not. And what's more, I could do it. I could see things wrong in the design that was being sent through to me. They'd send papers down and say, oh, you've got to make this. And I'd look at it and say, that won't work. And I could see things, not because I'd had the education these other guys had had, but because God was educating me, I believe. Don't stop letting God educate you. Anyway, I left that company. I went into trucks. Yes, I can drive a truck and a bus. And my son is a bus driver. My eldest son is a bus driver. He loves it. He's got a badge. It says, an empty bus is a happy bus. Passengers in our side of the country are a bit infrequent. Yeah, he'll drive his bus for 30 miles in each direction and carry maybe 3 people. That's one way, and the next day just somewhere else. But at the age of 30, God found me again. Or maybe I opened my ears to what he was saying, and I heard God. By this time, the truck company, I was working as the manager. Education is subnormal, yes. But I was managing this company. I was designing lifts and hydraulic equipment. I had a nice job. I had a nice family. I had 2 children and a nice detached house in a lovely suburb, company car. I got saved and went to a lovely little Methodist church, which was really friendly, really nice. They had one problem. They believed God was still speaking to you these days, and he did. I was being groomed to move into Masonic circles, which is a big thing in the motor trade. People in power tend to levitate towards that. I say levitate advisedly. And God stopped me. he said, I want you to leave and I want you to go to Wales. And I had no idea about South Wales, where I lived. I've never been. I didn't know anything about it, but I heard God's voice, and so I went. I took my family out of school, and we went. You're saying about the calling. I believe the calling is for every one of us. Now, it doesn't matter to me. I've got a young man with me from the school today. I don't belong to the school. I'm the pastor of the church. I'm a board member. I'm the chairman of the board for the school. We also have a furniture recycling company. We don't do church in the usual sense. We actually do church like this, around tables. But we're a bit on the ragged edge of church. We're out there doing things that church don't normally do. And I suppose, yeah, that's part of the calling. God has called us to be different. But it doesn't matter if you're working as an accountant, which is what Jake wants to do, because he's clever. He could do that, you know. He knows what all the numbers are and where they go and what they all mean, you know. He's still got a call on his life. God is still calling, shouting down his ear, saying, Jake, hear what I'm saying to you. And wherever he finishes up working, now you may finish up, I don't know, working in a bank. You may finish up welding something in a factory. You may finish up in a shop, driving a bus, being a politician, whatever else, joining the military. But wherever you go, every one of you have got one calling, and that's as a pastor. My job title, is not who I am. The job title, I've been in some places where you see, here comes the pastor, and it's, oh, we'll carry your Bible for you, pastor, you know, which is great. But who's carrying the kids' Bible? Somebody's got to care for people, and it's about love. That's the bottom line. It's about love. Have I run out of time? I hope not. Somebody wave at me if I get too long-winded, please. God moved me to Wales. He put me into a youth work in an Anglican church. Bear in mind, I'd left a Methodist church, which was on the far end of Methodism. They believed in healing. I'd received it. I'd been part of praying for people. I went to an Anglican church where they believed that God was a 1 day, 1 hour a week person, and he wasn't interested in anything else. We changed that. Little village church, 10 people, youth work of about 60-something, I think, when we'd finished. But from there, I did all kinds of work, by the way, doing this. I worked as a blacksmith, building stagecoaches. Yes, with horses, and Prince Philip's driving one now. He's got one. I worked making farm gates. I dug drains. I did anything and everything. And I'm thinking, what's all this for, Lord? Why are you doing this to me? And in 1990, he sent me abroad to work as a missionary. I'd never been outside Britain in my life. And he told me and made sure I went. He put me in pain. He said, fill a truck up with aid and take it to Romania. Poate tu vorbesc românești? Yeah? No, okay. No, you don't speak Romanian then, okay. So I took a truck out to Romania. I went 4 times that year. I lost the job I had at the time because they couldn't put up with the going backwards and forwards, and so I got another one with a friend of mine who was a Christian who needed some help, and I could have all the time off I needed to drive trucks to Romania. And God was telling me to go and live there. And my wife had been out there with me, on one trip. She drove a van out when I drove a truck. And she didn't like it at all. And God said, it's okay, she'll go with you. So I said, you know Romania? She says, we've got to go and live there because they've asked you to. I said, yes. So we went. And we lived in Romania for 2 years. And every penny we had ever earned, and every penny we had put away in houses, and every penny we had ever, we spent it. I bought a coach, and we lived on that for a while. You know, a big bus-type road coach, not a horse and thing. And it was fantastic. It was absolutely brilliant. We went broke in Romania, and it was fantastic, because money isn't what we live on. We live on Jesus. Every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. Come on, who's the word? Yeah? We feed on Jesus. And it was absolutely brilliant. I almost had a nervous breakdown. Yeah? But I look back and I think that was fantastic. Because it broke me and let him in. Some of you are looking a bit pensive now. Yeah. And we thought, Wales had been a training for the mission field. And God said, oh, sit down. The mission field's a training for Wales. Because we learnt more to rely on him than rely on us. Long story short, my wife and I are the pastors of New Life Church, Cardigan. Yes, my wife. My wife preaches more than I do because she's a much better preacher than I am. She's a much better orator. She's also very passionate, extremely passionate about God. And if we can't be passionate about God, we'll never be passionate about anything. Because God is the absolute root of who we are. Yeah. Like I say, we run a business. We started a business in the town. We had to start a limited company because you can't do certain things as a charity. And trading is one of the big no-nos. So we now trade. We have a limited company as a church because we wanted to find work for people who had no work. We wanted to train young people who had no hope. Being a pastor is not standing up on Sunday morning, saying a few words, going home and reading it again. Although I went to an induction of a new minister in a local church, and the head of his organisation came and stood at the front. This must be your day. You rise in the morning, you spend an hour in prayer, then you go for breakfast, and then you spend the rest of the day studying the Word. This is 5 days a week, by the way. You study the Word for 5, and then in the afternoons, you go out and you visit your flock. If my flock wants a visit, they know where I am. It's probably visiting somebody that can't get out. Or maybe I'll be working somewhere, building something, doing anything, but if somebody's capable of getting to me, they can come to me. Because we're not hopeless, are we? I don't know, maybe we are. Qualifications for being a pastor. Character is so far above academia in the qualifications for the job. If you can read, you qualify. If you have a job, you qualify. And what really, really counts is the character. As I said before, it's wherever you go, you are the pastor. If you know Jesus, if you've made that commitment to him as a response to the one he's made to you, You are the pastor. I'm trying very hard here not to say pastor, which is where I used to come from. You recognize that. I wrote this down. Qualification for being a pastor. Character over academia. Education is important, but character carries the gift. If your character doesn't match up, then the gift is either going to break you or those around you. Knowing how to serve, listen, be compassionate, tell the truth in love. I have problems with that one because people don't often want to hear the truth. They'd rather live with their misconceptions. But the best way of teaching anything is to demonstrate it. And demonstrating the love of God to people is what it's all about. Does anybody here want to be a pastor today? Didn't think you would. But you're not precluded from the job of being a pastor because you're female. You're not exclusive because you're a male. Yeah. There's a lot of jobs out in the world that need Christians to be in there. A lot of jobs. When you find yourself there, by whatever happy accident brings you there, remember to take Jesus with you. I'll leave you with one last thing that happened. I was managing the truck place, and I went in work one day. I'd been a Christian, probably. I'd prayed the prayer of commitment, and I'd actually given my life to Jesus. Although when I was 10, I think it was, or maybe 11, I'd prayed to God, I will always follow you because you're so good to me. Yeah. So when I'm 30, I prayed the prayer again. I meant it this time. But I went in work, and the roof caved in. Literally caved in. Everything went wrong. And I'd got this row of people lined up telling me, look, this is broken, that's gone, there's somebody's we've had a break-in, we've had and I didn't know which way to look. I was so confused by the whole thing, and I said to the guy on the reception desk in the office, I said, wait there, keep everybody else there, I'll be back in a minute. And I walked outside, I walked across the car park to my company car, went round to the passenger door, opened it, and I said, Lord, if you're not coming in here with me, I'm not going back. Yeah. And I closed the door. And he's been with me ever since. I've got to say, he's there all the time. Take him to work with you. Don't leave him at home. Take him everywhere with you. Because when you need him, it's now that you need him. So have I put anyone off wanting to be a pastor? No? I hope not. Because I have led the most exciting life so far that I couldn't even dream of. Because the first thing I did was say, I'm going to do it my way. And God said, no, you're not. Does anybody want to go into the building trade? No. Okay, who wants to be the bank manager? None of you, right, okay. Well, I know Jake does. He said he wants to be an accountant, and they gave me all these excuses as why. I said, you just want to play with other people's money. I know, yeah, and they charge them for it, yeah. But it doesn't matter what job you choose. What matters is that you take God with you when you go in there.